foremost question before we get into cataloging?
So in the frameworks,
Oh, right, yes.
does anyone know which fields and subfields are supposed to be set to ignore for them to work versus the ones that if you set them to the tab to ignore, it will delete them from the record?
Okay, I think, and I didn't post this because I'm not sure, that the 999 fields are set to ignore because the system puts them in itself and you don't have to do anything about it. In fact, you probably shouldn't do anything about it. I think that those are the only ones, but I don't know.
There's a 952.6 that also has to be set to ignore, or Koha will like scream at you. Those are the three. The 999 fields have to be set to ignore, and the 952.6 that I found. I'm wanting to know, is there any more that need to be set to ignore? Because it doesn't delete them for those fields. It does something different.
What's the 952.6?
I don't know.
I don't have all of them memorized.
Okay, I'm taking notes, and when everyone gets here, let's give them another few minutes. It may be low attendance because I'm just back. I didn't do announcements, but yeah, I'll bring this up, and I'm running over to check my frameworks. Let's see.
Yeah, and yeah, I ran a report and moved all of the tabs to ignore to the correct tab. I don't know how they were ever put in ignore to begin with, but your 952.6 and your 999, I think all ABCD need to be set to ignore, or they will not work. The system will not delete those fields. They do something different. But for all of the other fields in a framework, if you set the tab to ignore, it will delete them, which I feel like is a new thing. But they've been working on frameworks. They've been refining and adding to how frameworks work in more recent editions. I think starting with the 2111 or 2205 is when they started working with frameworks, change how the bibliographic record works.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can summarize since we're after the top of the hour, and correct me if I've gotten this wrong. So we are chatting about, and we started early because we were recording. Why not? But here's the review to catch everyone up. Lauren brought up the question of, with your frameworks, which fields of these should be automatically set to ignore? We were talking about how the 999 or the 999s are set to ignore because Koha assigns those. Koha needs those. Don't play with them. And then the 952 subfield 6 should be set to ignore. And I'm looking at my default framework, and my 952 subfield 6, Koha normalized classification for sorting. It says under constraints, subfield ignored. Also, my 952 subfield 9,
Yes,
Koha item number auto-generated, it says subfield ignored. And I'm scrolling, and I'm not seeing any other subfield ignored, at least in my framework.
I've got a lot of them ignored. Let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But these are all ones that I think are going to be changed later on, like damage status, use restrictions, shelving control number, total checkouts, total renewals, total holds. Those things you don't really start out with when you're uploading records.
And Jason just put into the chat bug 27730, innocent changes to framework silently delete bibliographic data. I love the title of that.
Which I think is what happened. And so I've been working on them. Used to, if you hit ignore, that meant it's not going to show up in any of the tabs, but you could go back and change it to be seen and it would appear. And now if you set it to ignore, Koha like just deletes it.
Yes.
It is no more. So you don't want anything set to ignore. You want to hide it. You just don't select the OPAC staff interface editor and collapse. You just leave all your little check marks unchecked. And then it won't make it appear and will not delete it, because I don't want it to silently delete things. And we ran into it would delete it, and then when you change the framework, it wouldn't add it back in. Like even when you changed it, it totally messed something up. So I'm like, okay, we don't want this to happen again. Now that we know about it.
Yeah, Lauren, in the presentation we did on CSV to MRC, I know that was, if it's set to ignore, it gets deleted. So I sort of emphasized it. So I don't remember when.
That's a new, but that's where the second bug that Jason shared, because there's certain fields that are supposed to be set to ignore, which is misleading, because there's like some of them are supposed to be set to ignore and they need to remove that little warning. They need to change the warning to, please do not put in a these are supposed to be ignored.
The second bug in the chat that Jason shared is 31923.
So, and I am copying myself to both of those bugs. So thank you very much, Jason, for you're the bug king. We should really get you a crown. Give an award. That's an award for the KohaCon. Who can find bugs the fastest?
That sounds like a whole session. We could have like a race. It could be a competition.
It does, actually.
I like it. Well, there was something shared with me ahead of time. I believe it was Christopher. Oh, and this is a wacky meeting, folks, because I've been traveling, didn't announce it, forgot at the beginning to say, welcome to the December 2024 Koha-US Cataloging Special Interest Group. Little out of order today. I believe it was Christopher had shared and would welcome ideas for having on one bibliographic record different manifestations. For example, a hard copy book and an ebook. And does anyone have ideas for splitting those out? All I could think of was that MARC edit or MARC modification templates might be handy, but this is outside of my expertise. Do folks have any ideas for Christopher?
I guess I don't understand quite. So like they do or they don't want both things on one record.
I think they used to want both things on one record, but now they don't want both things on one record. There's pluses and minuses. Traditionally, I know a lot of people go with the one record approach because you can have multiple 300 fields to say, for example, 328 pages, illustrations, 28 centimeters, another 300, one online resource. Even then, another 300 that says 6 compact discs. You can do this. It's non-standard, but it can be done. And then you have all your item records. What most libraries do and what has become more standard is to split them out into different records, and it allows better limiting in a search. It allows the correct little icons to show up in browse lists. And then sometime in the future, if we actually have clustering of different editions, then they will cluster. If you search in worldcat.org, you'll see the clustering of the different editions. So, Margaret says Aspen does that. For those unfamiliar with Aspen, it's a discovery layer that works really well on top of Koha. So I work in a very, very small staff specialized library. So my idea was, yes, FRBR-ized. Yes, Margaret, FRBR-ized is the magic term for the clustering. Functional requirements of bibliographic records, FRBR. My idea was run a report to capture all these records, and then you could then somehow generate the e-records and move the items. Labor intensive, but ideal telecommuting project, depending on how many records there are. So some more activity in the chat. The question from Mark, Aspen calls it grouping, correct? And Margaret says yes, grouping.
So yeah, for us, I mean, we do keep them separate. So we've got ebooks, we've got on one record, we've got the regular print on one record. We keep mass market as another record, large print as another record. So I would love to have FRBRization. I know that it's been in discussion in a long time. There's a bug. I can put that in chat about FRBRization in Koha. But there's also the record grouped holds feature coming at some point as well, where you can check several records and then say, I want whatever copy from that selection of records. So that's sort of like FRBRization light. Also, item groupings can do some degree, but that's labor intensive as well. As far as this situation, the way we handle it, since we use the 3M or the cloud library plugin, which just imports the e-records automatically on their own whenever new records get added for cloud library. For Hoopla, e-records are like, it's a synchronous search. So like they do a search and then there's a banner at the top that will do a side-by-side search in Hoopla. So we're not actually cataloging any e-content into directly into our catalog. It's all sort of automated. So that's an option, I think, depending on your platform. If you can get records from the vendor, you could just go in and delete all the items that are electronic and then re-import, do like an automated import for the e-content if you want to split it off.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that bug about to add FRBRized view is 15500.
Our library, we're having to manually, like I've run reports and I would do, like, I set up my frameworks to populate fields that are specific to that item. So like I have a DVD framework, I have a map framework, I have a microfiche framework. And then I would go in and run reports for like all the microfiche items and then check those to see if they were duplicate items and make copies of the records and then change the framework, like delete fields that I knew were affected, change the framework, move the item over. Like we still have our journals, reprints, and books. If those are shared with each other, I still haven't fixed those because we need to determine which titles are a journal, a monographic book, or a reprint, so that I can change the item types to the correct one and it match. And so I'm like, we're doing a big journal project right now. So I'm like, once my journal project is over, I'll go back and catch those little stragglers. But Jason wrote a report that will tell you if two things are on the same report. So I have like if a book and a continuing resource share. That was helpful. Like let's narrow it down to two things. If two different item types that I have specified is in the same report, find all those, and now I can manually fix those. But I don't know of a way to like do a batch. I think you're just going to have to manually copy the frameworks. I did somewhat automate it because I didn't have to remember the 0067-336 fields and 942. I could just, you know, delete, change. Okay, here we go. Save, move it over. Like it sped up the process, but it was still a very time-consuming process. And I don't totally know how to keep it from happening when doing imports if the ISBN is the same on both the like a video and a book, because the cataloger didn't know to delete the ISBN because it was a different item type.
Or properly add a qualifier. It's yeah.
So yeah.
That sounds like a really interesting presentation for some sort of like Koha conference working group idea session. Like perhaps get some people together who are doing this sort of catalog cleanup, like a catalog cleanup projects brainstorming sharing session.
So the conference in Portsmouth, whatever year that was, my presentation, my two presentations were on that. The first one was on like this is what I did. And then the second one was more, and this is how you do it. But I was told I went really fast. So if you listen to both of them, just slow the speed down. You know, most of them you have to speed them up. Mine, you need to slow.
Use your pause button. So Angela put into the chat, I know there's a bug to be able to move more than one item record from one TN to another by barcode. I wonder if that is a batch item modification tool that can be built. Enter a list of barcodes and move them to a specific TN. Would need a template, not sure if it would work. And Angela says TN for us means bib record. Okay, got it. And then
Glad I'm not the only person who's confused.
There we go. And Jason puts bug 6532, way to move items to another record in batches. And Fred says, Microfiche, where do you get readers? We have found reader scanner printers on the market. One thing that keeps this technology alive and available are family history researchers, because they are digging deep into micro format records. And then Angela says, we used to use a British system that called them title records and title numbers, hence TNs. Makes sense.
So my library we are called Family Search. We are a genealogy specific library. We're the largest in the world. So yes, we have.
I use familysearch.org.
Nice. Yeah, we have 2.4 million microfilms and another million or so fiche. And so yeah, we've got readers all over the place. And but yeah, moving the barcodes, doing that from one to the other, I'm wondering if being able to take apart some of those root records where you had all the multiple items into different bib records, if that would be part of being able to move groups of items off onto different records. That would be helpful, I think.
Definitely. And Jason shares another bug in the chat, maybe a dupe. Bug 33432, move a list of items from one record to another. I would find it useful for when a serial title change wasn't really caught, or the serial, it's like, well, this is the first issue, maybe it's a typo, I don't know, and then it changes and then it changes, and then you realize you have a title change and you want to move these over to here. Yeah. So does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to the group?
Well, it is more on the previous topic. My solution, as usual, favors functionality over elegance. When I'm downloading records for online books, I just set it to you look for the ISBN and replace the old record with a new record, keep the old item, and doesn't really matter to me what the 942 says, because I differentiate in the 952. And except, of course, for the records for R2, where we get 3 uses and things come and go and come and go, I just put those in as something entirely separate. And I use the OCLC number as the barcode, which makes things so much easier. A real cataloger would be clutching at her pearls, except I see Heather isn't wearing them today.
Well, maybe you just can't see them.
Oh, okay. And Heather, your voice and video are about 5 seconds out of sync. Is anyone else seeing that? Okay, not just me.
Sorry. I'm on my work computer. It does really creative things. Anybody else have anything to bring to the group? Oh, we've got a Barbara put something in the chat. This functionality would also be useful. It's bug 27648. Add item number as an option for moving, attaching an item from one bib to another. Yes.
I have something I just recently, I think it's kind of, no, it might not be related to what we were just discussing, but I'm gonna put a picture of it in the chat. I want to say this is because of a side loading issue, but have any of you ever seen this on your Aspen? Like, is that, have you seen like something come up as untitled and then it has like, it's like totally, it's not attached to anything. It's like a standalone kind of thing. I go to the group work and it just goes back to the same thing. I'm not sure if it's. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Holly says in chat she hasn't seen that.
Okay, yeah, it's the first time I've seen it too. So I was just like, oh, that's new. Okay, cool. Well, then I won't feel so bad putting in a ticket for it. But in that same picture, if you notice the little arrow, I'm wondering, I'm trying to find the part where how can I change the Libby audiobook part? Like if in any of the records, oh, sorry, somebody put in the, can you see the MARC record for that? No, I can't. So what it shows me for the bottom part, let me take a picture and actually just. Like this is all I see in the staff view. I mean, there's more obviously. But when I go to group work, it just comes back to the same record. The group work anyway, when I try and go to the group work. But in the first picture where you see Libby audiobook right under the title, like the main title, does anybody know how to change that? Like just go in. I'm trying to find, I can't do it in Koha. My bib will give me a different, I thought that was the item type, and I would put in the item type like in like my 942. And when I come over here in Aspen, it gives me something else. So I'm just trying to find where that lives. Let's change it.
I can't remember. I don't have a lot of participation in the Aspen part, but I'm pretty sure there is a way to do it. I just can't remember what it is.
Set display info.
Yeah, Jason Dikes, another Jason, suggests set display info. And there's a bit of chat about changing labels in Aspen, but unsure how. And Fred fears that perhaps Aspen's developing a mind of its own.
Yeah, I thought maybe because it takes what we put in Koha into Aspen. So I thought maybe it was like a cataloging thing that I was just like missing. So I was just like, hey, maybe they'll know.
It could be.
I think it's a mapping thing in Aspen, but I don't have access to those settings myself in our Aspen. But I'm just going to put a link to some of their help documents there. I don't know which one it would be, but maybe kind of peruse that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let us know how it goes if you discover an answer. If you don't discover an answer, perhaps also ask if you're in the Koha Mattermost chat. I would put this right in the town square to grab the most attention, because Aspen falls in between cataloging and OPAC and systems administration and web dev.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just I wish it could all be done in Koha so I don't have to worry about Aspen. That's all I want. Oh, and Jason, I just tried set display info. It doesn't give me the option to change that section.
Angela suggests or mentions in the chat changing labels under translation in Aspen Admin, but we had this issue too, and Bywater had to change that term for us in the coding.
I know that's where I was. I'm suspecting this is gonna be another ticket, so I thought maybe I'd share it before I make it into tickets, because I'm a ticket queen, apparently. Just not a bad thing. I'm just saying.
No.
And I have one more thing.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so how long will you and your catalog last, or how long do you think you'll last without needing to update your authority files? Like, say your admin wants to not, because as many of you know, Marchive is going kaput, and now they're wondering if that service is even needed. I'm looking for more justifications other than the fact that nothing's going to be updated and searchability will be affected. Does anybody have anything else? I'm trying to come up with as much as possible, and I'm not like the greatest cataloger or even call myself that, just very basic stuff for me.
Okay, I have so many opinions. Now, the Library of Congress's subject heading system and authority records, the Library of Congress subject headings changes officially monthly with additions and changes, as do the genre terms and the demographic terms, all those terms. And they have new things added. They have out of date and offensive terminology changed. They undergo these all the time, and the records that you get through copy cataloging are going to reflect these changes and are going to come in and conflict with your authority file. My authority file changes every day with new cataloging. Regarding name headings, people die every day, new writers write, and their names conflict with other names. And people who are looking for their records really, really, really want the right author, the right heading. Series are incredibly popular. They want the first volume, and they want to know, I want the next volume in the series and I want to read them in order. Series require authority records in order to be tracked correctly. Is it under the person's name? Is it under just a title? The Aubrey Maturin books. Is it Aubrey/Maturin? Is it Aubrey-Maturin? Is it Aubrey space Maturin? They're by O'Brien. I don't know if it's OBRIEN or IAN, but it's Patrick. I want that, and I want the records in order. These are the changes that happen all the time. And yes, a lot of libraries do not do authority work because their records are reflecting current books, current authors. They're reading constantly, and they're bringing in records constantly, and those records have the correct headings, and they're kind of good enough. But a good authority file assists your users in finding what they need and it decreases the time required at your information desk and your circulation desk and your reference desk for those users who just can't find it and think, I mean, my goodness, doesn't your library have the latest coming out by Vandermeer? Anybody else have opinions?
I mean, we don't do authorities here at all, so we've never really managed our authority file. Like, I shouldn't say that. We have an ongoing cleanup project, and we will go through and merge and clean up when there's time, but it's not a priority for us. We do live in that sort of Koha's good enough world where it can, the search is good enough for us, and we are mostly public libraries, mostly popular collections. We do subscribe to Novels Select, which helps fill in some of those gaps that Heather mentioned. So like series, it's going to give you better than we could do and read-alikes and that sort of thing. So yeah, we don't actively maintain an authority file. We don't pay for any services for that, and our search probably could be better if we did, but it's good enough for us.
So how much, so you say that you clean up and you merge and stuff like that every once in a while. Like how much time does that, like how much staff time is that? Is that even like a lot of time?
It's just busy work time, really. I don't have any, like it's not top priority for us here. Like generally they're always getting new stuff in and cataloging, and we do like link the authorities. There's that button at the top of the basic editor, and they'll link the authorities that are existing, but they're not going in and like actively working with the authority file itself hardly at all. It's more of like a summer project when we need to to make some busy work for our student helpers. We'll give them a list of what needs merged, and they'll go in and clean things up.
Jason Dikes mentions he does it weekly. Yes, this work is typically given to people who are on a desk anyway, and there are downtimes, reference desk, telecommuters, slow times, filling things in. I monitor the Library of Congress monthly lists, but I have a specialized collection. I can kind of eyeball which headings are going to be, and then during these downtimes, I work on updating our out-of-date headings, and the work I find ebbs and flows depending on whether or not there have been big changes to the Library of Congress subject heading system. They recently changed whether or not fictitious names were subject headings or name headings, so that requires some work and some merging. Koha does a great job if you have a correct 010 in your authority record, does a great job of overlapping and then updating the linked bibliographic records. Another one that required a lot of work was the heading illegal aliens. And Mark throws into the chat, I add authorities as I catalog and import. I also update as needed, but I don't do any monitoring and cleanup as a batch anyway. I wish I had more time. Yes, this is, yeah, I do work as I catalog, but yeah, this is the sort of thing that any work you do is a plus and improves discoverability. No catalog is ever going to be perfect. And I find that this work also is linked to some of those general catalog cleanup things. Like as I have time, I try to periodically say, do a report to clean up, like, are there any untied states in my subject headings versus United States? And on the Koha Wiki, there is a list of really good quality control reports. I should put that into the chat.
The National Library of Medicine puts out its list of medical subject headings, which can be used as authority files about once a year. In fact, it's coming up soon. They used to put out an easily read list of new subject headings, which medical librarians look forward to, like Beaujolais Nouveau. I tried to find them yesterday. Couldn't. But yeah, we don't use authority files.
Yeah, so that's basically what we're trying to decide here, because we get so many new books and we read heavily as well. So there's like the thought is that if basically Baker Taylor does all our cataloging for us, like everything, like all, we don't do any cataloging in-house, like we don't have a cataloger on staff. So everything is done through the vendor side and then gets sent to us, and we add as we go. And usually, like what we've been doing is using Marchive to update if we have short files that need updating, for example. But we don't usually have like a very big demand, or like there's never been like an issue with searchability or anything like that. Oh, that's because we've been doing Marchive. But if Baker and Taylor is already doing the work for us, like adding in the fields that we need, the argument is like, why do we need to do the authority files? So I'm kind of seeing, I'm just trying to get all the information I can from both sides, because I want to know everything. I don't know enough about authority files. I know what it does, but I just don't know what would happen. Like, I want to know, will I break Koha if I don't update the authority files myself? That's the only thing I'm scared of.
Nothing will break. You may find some implications down the road to the findability and the searchability, and have some more bigger projects to look at. But no, nothing breaks. It's sort of like saying, if all my bibliographic records are minimal records and they're not high quality, will something break? No. It's just probably more difficult for people to find what they're looking for. And an impact on staff, because those users who are really determined are going to contact the staff to say, hey, you should have this, and I can't find it, and where is it?
Yeah, that one's a new one. That's really good. The impact on staff. I don't have that, so I'll include that in my notes for them. Thank you.
And I encourage people to look at the chat, because there's a great discussion about this in the chat. And yeah, Juliet says, if you want to have a real mess, do like us and allow Koha to create new authority records whenever it doesn't find a match. Ooh. Yeah. Fred, yes. Can people find things? No. Fix it. Yes, they can find things. Don't fix it. I will share too. One thing we do it is very important in a maritime library are the vessels and people discussed in a book. And we found that a lot, we don't want to add subject headings for every vessel or person discussed in a book, because then that dilutes what people are finding. If they're searching by subject heading for the Queen Mary down in Long Island, they want a book that is mostly about the Queen Mary in Long Island. They don't want every tiny mention of the Queen. But so what we do is we put in notes in the record, just some nice 500 fields saying, included our discussions of and all the vessels, all the people. There's no authority work done on it. And if someone then is doing a keyword and a deep dive, then those items come up. So a lot can be done through adding some nice notes to the records, because then those will be keyworded in Koha.
A lot of medical databases and probably all the others let you add major subject headings and not major. Could that be a thing in cataloging?
Usually, the rule of thumb for a Library of Congress system, which is the one I'm familiar with, is you add a subject heading when something is 20% or more of the content. But however, for archival collections, you add more because you're attracting people to the primary resources. Oh, and Charlie's gotta run, no problem. This is one reason why we record. So I don't know about a major or minor. It's doing notes is the way to put those minor terms in, usually, that I know of. So does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring to the group?
You really wanted to confuse catalogers, you could make a new field, let's say 650 B or C, any one of the unused ones, and say minor topics.
That is a great non-standard approach that could work.
I have a bug. I'll put it in chat. My MARC edit isn't working like I wanted it to, and I ran into this problem where I wanted to go in and replace part of the 008 field with data from the 264s, and I can do that in MARC edit easily, but I can't like re-import it back into Koha right now because something's broken. So I found this bug that talks about making that part of the MARC modification templates, which I think is a good idea. And I just noticed that this one is linked up in that development to also modify indicators with MARC modification templates, which is the one that we voted, Koha-US voted to fund, so, or help fund, so, I believe. So I'm hoping that this gets fixed with that.
And incredibly popular. Both of these bugs are incredibly popular with catalogs. And the first one you shared has 14 users CC'd on it. Anybody else have anything they'd like to bring or any favorite bugs to share to bring some attention to?
I will at some point, but I have to figure out what's going on with the problem first. Give me a month or two.
You got it. I will let that lead into the fact that I'm going to mention that our next meeting is going to be Thursday, January 2nd. That's our scheduled time, and I'm planning on being here, even though it's January 2nd. We may all be a little jet lagged from staying up late, but hey, we'll give it a shot. Well, anything else? We can always end the meeting a little early. I don't think I have the power to stop the recording, so we'll just call it. Thank you everyone for coming, and have a lovely holiday season and a happy new year.
That's right, it is December.
It is December.
How'd that happen?
Snuck up on us.
I don't know. Part of me is still back in April, so I don't know what
Yeah.
happened.
Take care, everyone. Stay warm.
Yes.
Unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, and then stay cool. So,
yes. And try.
See you in 2026, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.